here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn to each other. We're just going to take a few minutes to do this. And I want you to first, I want you to go, my church is like this church because it may not be big, but we've built around the auditorium. That's our model. Or my church is like this because. So I'm going to give you about a minute to just talk to each other and just go, my church is like a Jerusalem church, and here's the reason why. Or my church is like an Antioch church, and here's the reason why. And let's blame somebody else, okay? My church is like this because I went to seminary and they taught me to do this. Or I was in the Foursquare denomination and that's what they taught me to do. So it's their fault, but that's what I'm like. Or over here, somebody discipled me and they made me be like this. I'm like this because of a guy named Don McGregor. When I was in college, I went to Life Bible College, the Foursquare Bible College, and I hated the place. There were things that were goofy, and it was just, I just didn't like it at all. And then I read this book about a Foursquare guy in the Philippines where they began to plant churches from churches, and those churches planted churches from churches, and the whole time they were struggling because they all believed you have to go to Bible college in order to be a pastor. So here's the deal. Guy goes to Bible college. It's a 3-year school. He goes to Bible college for a year, and his mom gets sick, and he has to leave. And he goes back home to the village where he came from, and he leads some people to the Lord, and pretty soon they're meeting together talking about Jesus. What do you call a group of people who meet together talking about Jesus? What do you call the leader of one of those? So now this guy who only went to 1 year of Bible college, not 3, is called a pastor. And then, but he went to at least 1 year Bible college, so he got some of it. And now he starts to disciple some guys, and those guys are getting some of what he got. And one of those guys has to move because he has a job in another town, and he moves over there, and he starts bringing some people to know Jesus. And he never went to Bible college at all, but he sat with somebody who did, and now he starts one of those groups of people talking about Jesus, which is called, and he's now called a pastor, and he makes some disciples, and now nobody had anything to do with that Bible college back there. And this group in the Philippines, we're having 55,000 people a year come to know Jesus. And they started hundreds of Foursquare churches. The Philippines had by the time I was in college, 1965, they had far more Foursquare churches in the Philippines than they did in the United States. And they only had 2 American missionaries down there. And so it's Don McGregor's fault that I did this. I read that book when I was 19 years old, but I stayed in that Bible college, and they taught me to do this. And so I started out doing this, and then one day I meet Don McGregor. I invited him to come to our church. He moved to the United States. I asked him to come and speak in my church. And so he comes to speak in my church, and he gets a hold of me, and he's a big guy. He puts his arm around me, and he goes, so I want to know, are you going to do great things? And he says it like this, are you going to do, in your life, are you going to do great things for Jesus? And I go, yeah. And he goes, what are you going to do? How are you going to do great things for Jesus? And I go, I'm going to build the biggest church I can build. And he goes, and he grabs my ear. He pulls my ear, and he goes, I don't think you understood my question. Are you going to ask if you're going to do great things for Jesus? And I go, yeah, I'm going to do great things for Jesus. I'm going to win a lot of people to Jesus. I'm going to build the biggest church I can. And he pulled my ear again, and he goes, hard. And he goes, you didn't understand my question. I want to know if you're going to do great things for God. This time he says. And I told him the same answer, and he pulled my ear, and he kicked me in the shin hard enough that I bled. And he laughed at me. And he goes, you don't get it at all. And I go, what is it? And he goes, if you want to do great things for God, you got to make disciples. So we did this because of that Don McGregor kicking me in the leg. So Which are you and whose fault is it? I'll give you about 1 minute. Turn to each other in twos or threes and tell.